which is a new leader emerging from the exchange of pit stops. Newman Haas team is very, very fast here, and it might be that Paul Tracy will follow Johansson into the pits but come out the leader. That's just something we should watch for.
Ray Hall was third as he was in and out of the pits. Scott Pruitt also made his stop. So we're still waiting for the leaders of the race, Johansson and Tracy, and there they are.
Sometimes when the cars come out of the pits, like we just saw with Bobby Rahal, you can see what the tires do. If the tires are not warmed up and seated in really good, they're just the cars are all over the track. Now these two cars here, first and second place, are not too far away from going in for pit stop. It's going to be interesting when they come out. Let's watch and see how their cars jerk around with a change of tires.
Johansson's car is owned by Tony Bettenhausen, who's been in business since 1986 with the race team. He won a race himself as a driver, but they've been winless as a team. This is a very big day for the smaller team, somewhat underfunded compared to the really big teams like Newman Haas.
And both first and second place head into the pits. Paul Tracy following Stefan Johansson.
Watch this very carefully, gentlemen.
Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, Stefan Johansson comes to rest first, but now Paul Tracy follows him in. Now, the advantage for Tracy is he's further up pit road and beyond, for the most part, the radar gun. So his exit speed will be able to be a little faster. Let's take it to Gary Jarrell. Gary?
Well, the first time that Stefan Johansson has led a race in his career, and he's down off the Jackson gone. The chase is on now. And boy, what a moment it would be for Tony B if Stefan can somehow pull this one off.
Tracy out first, followed by Johansson.
Now that just is strictly the pit crews again. We always tell people how important the pit crews are. That was a perfect example. The pit crew on Paul Tracy's car. Carl Haas's team physically beat the Johansson team out.
We saw that in Miami, of course, 2 weeks ago. That's how Jacques Villeneuve took the lead. It was in the pits, so we've just seen it again.
Both cars must be very careful. Remember, this is fresh, cold rubber on these cars, and if you push it too hard, you're in big trouble.
And you can see Tracy coming right out of that turn right there, and the rear end just jumped right out on him. They have to give him a little bit of time. But, of course, these are both very good drivers. I can remember back, I was talking about the pit stops and all. Rick Gallus from Albuquerque. I can remember how he and Little Al could lead races, but they'd come in the pits and lose them. And he just started on a year-long practice pit stop, and he came out to be very good with his team that way.
Brian Herta, Fittipaldi, Emerson Fittipaldi should be just ahead, running 13.
Brian Herta, of course, had a major accident last summer in Toronto. Interesting story Dr. Olvey was telling me a few moments ago, which is that when Brian was in the ambulance on the way to the field hospital, just moments after the crash, he said, "Doctor, how long am I going to be out of racing?" I mean, he was already, he had a badly broken leg and some other injuries. He was already saying, how quickly can I get back in business?
So now, with the stops by Johansson and Tracy, Michael Andretti reassumes the lead of the race. But as mentioned, he could have a problem. Surfers Paradise Resort, just a few feet away from the track, 330 rooms, 28 floors. Where we're staying, it's got this great pool, has a saltwater pool. You can go scuba diving in it, has a great water slide. In fact, I can do a full 360 roll coming out of the water slide. You ride with Michael Andretti. The report now, Michael has no second gear. But Bobby Unser's second gear is where he has been going to power through the chicanes. On both sides of the track, there are 3 of them. Now, he has been running as high as 103 miles an hour. He turned the last lap at 100 even, so it's not bleeding off all that much. Behind him is Paul Tracy, but 9 seconds back.
Okay, Paul, besides right now knowing that he doesn't have the second gear, I was listening to him because we have our sound inside the cars on that thing. He's been coming out a lot of the chicanes early in the race in 3rd gear, not using second gear as much as he was, like during qualification. So actually, he's really not slowing down as much as we might think he is. And plus, he's back leading the race. So Michael is not having as many problems as sometimes they call in to complain about.
All right, at the start of the program, we were talking about all the news stories in IndyCar racing. Let's review them now. Let's start with Jack.
Well, Paul, we talked about Michael Andretti. He sat on the pole. He led a lot of this race. Now he's got some gearbox problems. He is still out front, but he's seeing the competition is closing quickly. In the meantime, the guy that started on the outside pole, the baby-faced assassin, well, he's by the boards with Team Green. So my top two stories, one is still in the race. The other one will have to wait until Phoenix. Let's check in with Gary Gerald.
Jack, we talked about Gilles de Baron and how fast he'd been in the first two opening events in terms of qualifying. Of course, the big story for him, a pair of black flags in the early going. One for shortcutting the course. Then when he paid his penalty there, he was too fast out of the pits. He had to come in a second time. But they've elected to stay out there to chase points. And he now is in 12th position. And if he's in 12th position, that means he'll get at least one championship point if he can hang on to that. Meanwhile, it's an ongoing track test session for the Jim Hall team. Let's go to Paul.
Hiro Matsushita got tagged from behind. You saw it there as Robbie Gordon closed on him. That took out the left rear. He had to come in and get it changed.
At the beginning of the race, I wondered how the brakes would hold up. Well, there have been quite a few yellow flags that were at the beginning. That would ease the situation on the brakes, and the story really has been more the transmissions. But the other thing I wondered about was this man here, Paul Tracy, who you see driving down the front straight here at Surface Paradise, crossing the start-finish line right there. How would he do when he has mixed a very canny and cautious start with a very aggressive middle part of the race? He currently lies second behind Andretti, who's having trouble. This race could very well be Paul Tracy.
And Bobby, at the start, the Penske team was your concern.
Yes,
it's still a concern.
Yes, it still is. But I think it's probably one of the biggest stories so far is, have they gotten their cars fixed? Are the 95 cars as fast as the 94s? If Penske and his people made some mistakes. Little Al was quite happy. He's been very aggressive. 2 black flags. It really put him back in the race a long ways today, but he was fast. Emerson Fittipaldi in a team car has not looked very good. Penske will still keep working, just like I described it earlier. Somehow or another, it seems difficult when you come back as a champion. The number one in the car isn't always a good number to have.
Of the Penske team, Unser Jr. runs in 9th place, and Emerson Fittipaldi is running in 13th as we watch the leader of the race, Michael Andretti. And we get a look back. About 7 seconds. He's whittled almost 2 seconds off of Michael Andretti. In the past 3 laps is Paul Tracy. Stefan Johansson is spaced 5 seconds back from Paul Tracy, and then Bobby Rahal runs in 4th and Scott Pruitt in 5th.
Now, Michael, you know, for example, in qualifying, we know he was using like second gear through, for example, the chicane. Now, Paul Tracy, for a win, will gamble on tearing his transmission up. And I'm not saying he's going to tear it up. I certainly hope he doesn't, but he'll gamble on it, run it as hard as he possibly can. Anything to find Michael with a weakness and catch him.
Next Saturday on ABC Sports, it's a battle of the baseline. Steffi Graf and the top names in women's tennis are in Key Biscayne for one of their premier events. Our coverage of the Lipton Championship begins with the women's final Saturday at 1 o'clock Eastern right here on ABC.
Interesting to see 2 Newman-Haas cars leading the race. They're 1-2. Michael Andretti there, about to lap Hiro, leading the race. Now the question is, will Tracy, if he closes in, and he's only 7.3 seconds back right now, battle Michael for the lead? That will be interesting, and we'll have to see it, because this team operates like the Penske team, which is every man for himself. There are no team orders.
Michael Andretti wants a clear road, and he's trying to wave his way clear. He is well aware that Paul Tracy is closing down. He's trying to get Hiro Matsushita out of his way so he can pull away as fast as he can and get away from Tracy. The race continues here in Surface Paradise. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC station. Australia, Michael Andretti leads the race, followed by Paul Tracy, Stefan Johansson, and Bobby Rahal. Let's go to the pits now. Once again, Gary Gerald.
Well, Chief Executive Officer of Indy Car, Andrew Craig. And Andrew, you've got to be terribly proud of what's going on in the success of this event here on the Gold Coast. And yet there seems to be concern about a possible date change for this event in the future. Can you tell us anything about that?
Yes, we're very proud of the event. We're going to have a sellout today, just like we had in Miami 2 weeks ago. But you're right, there is a problem with the date. The Formula One race is going to be in Melbourne starting next year in '96. At around about the same time as this race. And clearly, in a small market like Australia, it's going to be very difficult to accommodate 2 races at the same time. We're working with the promoter to find a new date for the race. It's very difficult because, of course, of our many other obligations, but it's something we've got in hand.
Now, as a man who is nearing his first anniversary in this role where you shoulder so many responsibilities, I know that not only you're proud of the PPG Cup, but this year you've added a couple of bonus awards in the Nations Cup and a Manufacturers Championship.
That's right. The two new championships are a Manufacturers Championship to recognize the important role that companies such as Mercedes-Benz, Ford, and Honda play in our series, and of course Toyota coming on board next year. We felt it's important that they had their own championships to recognize what they bring to our series. The Nations Cup is a new idea, and I think it's unique in motorsport. For the first time ever, our American drivers are going to have the chance to take on in head-to-head competition all the other drivers from throughout the world. So we have Team America, Team Brazil, Team Canada. We look back at last year, the Americans would have won it last year. Who knows who'll win it this year? We have terrifically strong representation from 10 nations.
It's great competition. We appreciate your continued efforts to make it even better.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And as you can see, that time being held up behind Hiro Matsushita was very costly for Michael Andretti. On the other hand, Paul Tracy was able to handle up Matsushita much quicker, and now only sits a second and a half behind the leader of the race, Michael Andretti. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, let's update you on the fuel consumption story for Michael Andretti. His gearbox problems may be benefiting the fuel consumption. The telemetry is showing that now they literally could go right to the last lap before they run out of fuel. So they're beginning to think that maybe it's a mandatory short-shifting type situation. Losing the lower gears is forcing him to get a little bit better mileage, and Michael Andretti may not have to come back into the pits for a splash and go.
And of course, Paul and
you got a glimpse there of Johansson slowing on the course, Bobby.
Yes, I just saw that just for a moment there. But at any rate, what happens when Hiro, who is obviously going way slower than fast race speed, not going very fast, Michael has second gear that's gone. He needs a second gear when he tries to lap these cars so he can get off the corners fast. This is what's really hurting, whereas Tracy still has all of his gears. He can squirt off the turn.
Two cars sitting by the edge of the course, Johansson and Fittipaldi. We've gone full course yellow, Gary Gerald.
Well, we're in the...
one car into the wall. That's DeFerrin. Looks like he's bounced off a wall. Sorry, Gary.
All right, so the things happening all over. We're in the Bentonhausen Johansson pit, and Tony B disgustedly throwing the headset down moments ago. They believe that they have a gearbox problem. It's haunted and plagued so many teams. You understand the electronics have been a problem for Emerson Fittipaldi, and now the contact with DeFerrin.
DeFerrin still sits in the cockpit. Let's take a look at it under replay. This, of course, is Paul Tracy and Michael as they slow under the full course yellow. And that will put Tracy right on the back end. Now, here's the situation with Gilles DeFerrin.
In the yellow car at the top of the screen.
Looks like he bounced off.
Looks like he bounced off of a car instead of the wall to me.
Ooh. There it is.
And there it is right there, the left rear. And I'm wondering about even the tire on Cheever's car. That was a very hard hit.
This, of course, will help Michael Andretti, the fuel situation.
Michael Andretti may have just gotten the break that he needed at Surfers Paradise. Rolls in Queensland, Surfers Paradise, Australia, one magnificent town. Coming to Surfers Paradise is a perfect example of mixing business with pleasure. Many of the drivers took full advantage of the beautiful countryside, and they all really enjoyed their stay down under.
It's a great country.
The people are great. It's a great venue.
G'day, mate.
It's a good time. We've been out playing the boats a little bit.
We've been doing everything from a little bit of surfing and boating to golfing to riding a dolphin.
I'm here to race.
I went to see some kangaroos and always sleeping.
They jump around pretty fast. I'd say they probably go about 25 miles per hour.
I know they won't beat our race car.
Well, actually, they bound at 35 miles an hour.
I guess they're pretty good boxers, too.
Watch out. It's beautiful. Going down beautiful.
Saturday on ABC Sports, the Professional Bowlers Tour rolls into Connecticut. PGA money leader Dale Entremont takes on the field at the Tums Classic. Then we begin coverage of golf's first major of the year. Defending champion Donna Andrews and the LPGA's best tee it up in the Nabisco Dinah Shore. That's live Saturday here on ABC Sports. Well, we anticipate coming back to green flag here shortly. We are in the closing laps of this race now. 9 to run out. Remember, the car in front, Michael Andretti, has gearbox problems, doesn't have a second gear,